Good morning, friends. OBE Journal 2017, number 10, I believe. And onward we go, onward, outward, in this expansion of consciousness, this daily, even though it happens at night, this daily expansion of consciousness. And I amongst other things, took some time to have a look at some people, and not anybody, I didn't pick out person A, B, C, and D. I just had a look. And this is can be seen as an invasion of privacy, using my study as an excuse. But let me say, I did it quickly and did not pay attention to personal details. And when I sensed privacy was at a premium, and which one can sense the energies, I did not move in, as it were. We're talking bedrooms here. And I would say so 8 out of 10 approximately were not in their bodies. The body was sleeping on the bed, under the covers, and the astral body was away. Of the two people that weren't, they were hovering. Physical body, astral body moves up, hovers in sleep, in astral sleep, if you like. Now, there's no guarantee that when I passed by, that those two hovering bodies were there all night. It looked to me like they would be. You can't always tell. They may have drifted off and then come back. Astral bodies can just, And of those that were gone, they can be floating around in a subconscious state, semi-conscious, subconscious, looking for interesting stuff, curious, but not really becoming aware in the sense of lucidity. And I'd have to sort of follow people around to do that. But just a small point. It's been brought up in the old literature a few times. When I say the old literature, I mean things that are 100, 150 years old. And there's older literature than that, which I will, quote from. At some point, Robert Moss has a great book that I'm working on right now called The Secret History of Dreaming, where he quotes ancient texts, fascinating ancient texts, Greek, Egyptian, etc., which are remarkably contemporary, shockingly so, in what these people were doing and attempting to achieve and discovering. These teachers, these philosophers and teachers of the dream state. And of course they had different language, different words, but one can see essentially they're talking shamanistically, beyond the reach of any contemporary set of rules and regulations, no matter what society it is. And one can see their early adopters of what we're all doing now. And fascinating stuff, but we will get to that. So in a very small sample, I should have done 100, but I only did 10, around the neighborhood here. Um, you know, there's your percentage. Almost everyone's out floating around somewhere. It's a matter of how lucid you want to make it and how daring you want to be. It's not a matter of can or can't. It's a matter of the engine's going, look out the window. You're driving and make a right turn, make a left turn. I don't say that to chastise you, but just to remind you. I did want to comment, and this is not something that happened last night, a couple of nights ago, but as I've said, there's so much to talk about, I can't seem to get to it all in these fairly long sessions as they are. It may have escaped your attention in the exciting drumbeat of world news, but there was a forest fire, and perhaps still is, in Portugal. Devastatingly powerful forest fire, in which at least, as I understand, 80 or so people have perished. And I only saw a couple of news reports before investigating this, but people were trying to escape the area in their cars, and the fire roared across a highway, and some of them were indeed trapped within their cars. And I believe not just, again, excuse my ignorance here, I haven't seen a complete news report here, but heard a couple of interviews, and at least some of the people were visitors, perhaps holidaymakers, I'm not sure, trying to escape a certain area, as well as residents. But again, I haven't heard the details. But I did visit the area astrally 1 or 2 nights ago, and just because I thought, oh, people are going to be terribly upset. It was very shortly after the London fire, the London apartment building fire. And again, as I have reported with these natural disasters, guides were at the ready and plucked a number of people out of their bodies in the fashion that I mentioned a couple of nights ago. And permanent resident astral guides are very good at this sort of thing. I'm not saying every single one is, but a lot of them are, highly trained, sophisticated, have been at it for quite a while, and know how to grab that astral body right at the moment. Maybe the smoke inhalation phase, I'm not quite sure. Well, maybe just at the fainting stage. So, and the people, all the souls were cared for in an astral plane reception center, hospital / So I thought people might be concerned about that. And again, our friends in the astral have much more under control than we think they do. That's not to exclude suffering, that is to minimize it. And much in the same way we do here, when your doctor will tell you, I can manage that pain, I can manage that. And they will say that to you proudly, as mine did once, many years ago, just discussing the whole way of dealing with pain. Yes. Of course, it all seems to be related to opium and its byproducts. And as I've reflected several times on my blog, opium has accompanied us. Opium and its cousins have accompanied us on our journey on this planet for millennia. And we're still learning how to treat it with respect, as we see with the opioid crisis. Opium is our ally, but we must learn to treat it with respect. And those who don't, those who submit to its rule, will in fact be its slaves. You have to approach opium on a level, not underneath in a begging position. I mean, I realize it's kind of philosophical, but it's true. And it's been ever thus for millennia. And I always say, let us give thanks, because the pain-killing abilities of opium are never ending, and the various developments thereof. But we're still learning to admire its power and work with it rather than submit to it. A bit like, the power of tornadoes, the power of volcanoes, the power of the wind. It plays with us, and we have to learn to play with it, which we do most of the time. I think often of the power of predators when we were early days on the planet, when our predators had the run of the show, and we hid most of the time. Caves, trees, holes in the ground, making energetically, putting together our first chakra. That one right down there, the number one, the flight or flight chakra, which was a necessary thing. We decided to create the chakras one by one and in our energy bodies, and that was the first one we worked on. That was when we came down from the paradise, the semi-astral paradise of Lemuria, as I understand it, that has been given that name. We lived in a not a physical plane, but a mostly astral plane, in a paradise type world, and similar to the mid-astral now, and accustomed ourselves to that embodied existence before coming down to the lower level on the early days of the physical plane, when it could actually be inhabited, if only for brief periods of time till you got killed. Anyway, much amusement looking back on that, but not much amusement while we were there initially. So another viewpoint there, just on how we have slowly built up and created this reality that we live in and work with. And when I say that, I'm including the planes. That is the reality that we work with, as we sort of move up and down through them and the various stages of the reincarnation cycle. And as you proceed on your own nightly curiosities, I would remind you that you can go to any of these planes. Some might be vibrationally a little too exciting. You rise too high too fast. You sort of go, ooh, I don't know if I like that, and you come back down again. But never let that become a permanent state. Allow your curiosity to lead you through the various comfort zones that you have, and because we all have them, and if your comfort zone is brief encounters with deceased loved ones, then let that be. If it's excitement over seeing a musical performer that you know has passed on and have an inner feeling that they are performing, then do that, because they are, in all genres, in all cultures, theater people, music, performance, classical, jazz, whatever, rock, country. They all love to perform. They might take a little rest when they first die, but that rest, it's like they take a month off. It's like, oh, I'm not going to tour till December. I'll get back. But it's the same thing. They might be intrigued with the various possibilities of what can be done on the astral, in terms of production values and lack of pressure to do with financing. And they may also be intrigued with the many places where they can appear anonymously and intimately outside of their reputations. Just sort of kind of show up and arrange it. I'm thinking of Paul McCartney and Wings in 71, 72, doing those college gigs as, I don't know, Ricky and the Ricardos or whatever they called themselves. And it worked for a while. And they got to play to audiences where they were like some, the local band on a Friday night and a couple of beers. And I think they had great fun for a while until it was uncovered. And I'm pretty sure Neil Young has done the same thing. I read about it years ago, showing up at various small town California clubs anonymously and playing a set and enjoying the anonymity. And you can bet Bowie's doing it. I mean, he did it here with Tin Machine. I'm not sure how much he's doing it. He didn't speak of it to me, but he's a clever rascal, that David. And always up for an adventure, as far as I can tell. And God bless him for doing so. I've been contacted several times since doing this. People are immensely cheered to hear about David and his activities, and fits in with what they suspected. Several people who have said to me, "My God, was that David Bowie that came the other night? I can't believe it. Why would he come and see me?" That sort of a thing. So God bless him for doing that. He has done wonders for a number of people, not to mention humanity. Okay, passing through the plains. What was I? Yeah, well, I did a little exercise on that to sort of, so that I could talk about it. And, specifically now, this morning. And as you sort of project yourself through the plains consciously, you will see all kinds of activities, and both of a human nature and a non-human nature. You will, if you attune yourselves to it, see or become aware of the activities of fairies, elves, elementals, devas. And of course, how shall I say, deceased animal spirits. And if you have beloved pets, dogs, cats, horses, you can visit them too. They are there, and they will meditate on it before you go. Send out the beam of love, and they will be around, and they will come to you, or they'll somehow arrange it so that you can find them, because they're smarter than you think they are. And I know a lot of you think your pets are smart, but in my experience, they're even smarter. In terms of telepathy, they're not going to start talking to you, but the telepathy thing and the love thing will be strong. And I know that's important for many of you, as it was when our husky Misha passed on. It was wonderful to have her visit in her astral body, as she did many times. And I would go walking with her down by the lake, just like we used to, and try not to talk to her as people were going by, just when we were on our own. And marvelous creature she was too. And It still is. So as you move through the plains, you can sense the quality of activity that you're passing through, whether you see it or not. Qualities of activity are based around, you know, curiosity bounded by um, doubts and fears and habits. Um, and how people can break the bonds of earthbound habits and cultured activity. You do certain things because your culture permits it, encourages it, or it does the opposite. It doesn't encourage it, it doesn't permit it. There are areas, levels where you will find people flying for ease of access, for fun, and flying in their bodies. And you can see them. And other levels where people, they won't do it, either because they can't or they don't quite get it. On the lower levels, you're too kind of heavy. The lower levels are not that distinct from this level. There's a density, there's a sense of gravity that holds people down, not quite as much as here, but certainly more than upper levels where people can just kind of float off, no problem. And then on the levels where you can float off, conventionally minded people don't do it because of decorum and etiquette and all that sort of thing. So again, there's habit emerging from culture, and the expectations and demands and habits of culture. And then there's levels where people just shuck all that off and they're just having a blast and having fun. And they do all sorts of things in the air, all sorts. And flying, of course, but imitating birds of various types. Not necessarily looking like birds, but imitating them. The swooping, the diving, the gliding. Some people just love to do that. And I've done it myself. It's wonderful fun. I like to glide along just above the water, just touching it, but not quite, just like an inch or so. That's great fun. I love doing that. And I highly recommend it as a recreational activity. On the higher levels, of course, you will learn that your translucence, the light sort of illuminating your body in ways that make it look like it's not there, it's like your molecules become so far apart that they're barely there. I'm not talking about the higher levels here. And finally, you just sort of disappear, as I've mentioned in a number of other reports. And that can be that goes way beyond curiosity for most people. That can be, fear-inducing for sure. Identity losing. You don't lose your identity, but it sure feels like you're going to. And I've helped a number of people, encourage people to practice that. You can do all kinds of stuff. There's various rituals. You can sort of hang up your astral body in a closet and go off invisible and come back and put it back on again. If that ritual makes you feel comfortable, and but to go into the formless space and experience that, and then come back, is something that I've helped many souls do, because it's a leap. It's a leap off the edge, and folk are like, "Oh, don't know if I can do that, Gord," and I'll go, "Oh yeah, sure you can. Come on, I'll show you. Here, hold my hand." And they're already fairly far advanced when they get to that point. You're sort of translucent, but not quite transparent, as it were. You're a colored window rather than a clear window. And that clarity, that transparency, to feel, it allows you to feel everything moving through you. You put up no barrier to anything, no barrier to emotion, no barrier to thought, no barrier to others' thoughts. No, you can experience something quite marvelous in that state, as you can meditating here. You can do much of this stuff in meditation, although it can be more of a challenge. And out there, in the wonders of it all, it's just another more refined wonder in a seemingly endless catalogue of wonders. And well, it is endlessly, really. And the thrill of it all never dies. And you may wish to turn those thrills into a kind of a serenity. In your early days, the thrill of it all will excite you, overexcite you, and drive you back to your body. And I've tried to give people advice on that matter. Traveling in the astral body, the body of emotions, can be overwhelmingly exciting, and it can be trouble, stilling the waters to make a smooth, exit and re-entry. And that's just something you have to learn. And it will come to you. It comes to us all. And you take that journey at your own pace, not at my pace, not at the pace I advise, not at the pace that someone else suggests, just at your own pace. And you will find what that pace is. As a way around that, I've often thought that people might, I've advised that you do a projection using the imagination. Lucid dream workshops often use this. And because when you are projecting in sort of imaginative meditation, either alone or in a group, especially in a group because there's group energy there that powers it, you are actually out there. You just think you're not. And a lot of what I'm doing here is that kind of a projection, because I've learned to do it over the years. And it's subtle, it's slight, it's subtle. The perceptions are not nearly as powerful and are easier to dismiss, but they're there. They're definitely there. I can assure you they're there. And when you do, as some of you I know have practiced, doing retrievals in meditation, sitting in your chair, meditating, you can project to a number of places. I initially learned this from Bruce Mullen, and I think about it. The famous retrieval, where was he? Brannigan's having fish and chips or something? And he found himself retrieving people from, I think, one of the, some sort of a natural disaster, an explosion of some kind of, anyway, he'd been practicing for a while, and at a certain point found he could do it while he was eating supper, in a public place. And that rather inspired me. I thought, oh my goodness, you don't actually have to be in meditation to do that. I mean, I wouldn't say I do it particularly often, but I'm more inclined to, do it in quiet meditation. But I've been doing it for years. And same with distance healing. I did some of that last night for a friend that's got a summer cold. And I projected over to where she was sleeping, and healing energy was sent. And then I saw myself sitting beside her, my hand, the Reiki emanating hand over her throat and upper chest, because it was a sort of a cough chest situation. And I've been doing that sort of thing for years. And while I wouldn't say it's easy, I wouldn't say it's hard either. But there's that imaginative projection, and you are projecting an energy-filled part of yourself. It's not, I wouldn't say it's not the astral body. It's mental, some aspect of the mental body, I would say, to quote esoteric teachings. And again, the experience is more subtle than exciting, although it can become exciting in the middle. Sometimes, you're in the body, and the projected part is out there, and you sense it's there, and you're doing what you're doing, exploring, working, interacting, retrieving, and the sensations become much, much stronger, and you're more there than you are here, or it feels like it. Now, the sensation of being more there or less there doesn't really affect what you're doing. It just affects your perception of it. It's a lot to do with perception. So a number of you have asked about retrievals, more on retrievals, and there's certainly a way you can do it. You don't have to be asleep and projected. You can be meditating. Whatever, both are valid and both happen all the time. And you can meditate let's say in an urban area, like the one I live in, and ask guides to take, are there any car accident victims today that are troubled and need to be helped on? And if the regular guides, astral plane guides, permanent resident types, are having trouble reaching a certain victim, as they often do, they can use you to do it because your vibration's a little lower and closer to where the dead person actually is in their confusion and upset. So you can find yourself doing that. Certainly. There's people pass every day, as you know. And the same with people that pass in hospitals from old age, although they tend not to get stuck as much because they're ready to go, but it does happen. So you can ask for help on that. If you feel like, well, I'm out here, but where should I go? You'll be guided. And you can do self-guidance too, once you get to that level of consciousness. I did that, and I wrote about that extensively, that process, in my book, More Adventures in Eternity, where I wanted to be a team player. This is back in 2005 or something. Learned to be a team player, doing retrieval work and taking my training and instruction from guides. And eventually they would tease me and say, oh, you can do that on your own, or we haven't got time for you, or, brush me off at a certain point. And so I started doing things on my own. And as I think I've said before, puzzled about how to get places. And was I getting to the quote-unquote right place? And I remembered what William Bowman had given a command to himself when things weren't clear for him, things were fuzzy and ill-defined, and he developed the command "Clarity now." And when he said that inwardly, things became clear. And I readapted that to Iraq. It was, believe it or not, I used to wonder how to get to Iraq. It's an instant thought transfer. There's no wondering, but I went through a whole stage of wondering, and I finally adapted his command to Iraq now, and I did. And then I was there, and simple enough. But when you're entangled with thoughts and attitudes and being focused on being an apprentice, you can get messed up on that sort of a thing, tie yourself up in knots. So I would remind you of that. When you're interacting with a confused and maybe angry, frustrated soul who feels that they've been taken too soon or taken in an unfair way, whether that be a car accident, car hitting a bicyclist, young bicyclists, happens all the time, or somebody taken down in a botched drug deal, which, as we know, happens all the time. I read of a case, 2 students about to graduate from high school. uh, went down in a botched drug deal. And I mean, this is just what I'm picking up from the papers. We know this goes on all the time, even if I just include North America, which is where I read about most of these things. And uh, I'm distinguishing that from, the more obviously tragic war zones. And I think I've covered that with the retrieval work that goes on permanently in war zones. There's no lack of that, although they always need more people. I mean, it's just like, you know, cleaning up after a party. You can always, if you walk in and somebody's cleaning up after a party, you can always help them. But um, the retrieval work that goes on in a regular so-called peaceful society is it's endless too. It's people passing all the time, and the ones that can be difficult are the ones in those type of situations. They feel gypped by fate, life, others, and they're angry. They're annoyed. They're like, how dare you? And I've got lots to do, and my life is going well, and all my ambitions are trashed, and they're annoyed, and that anger, annoyance, frustration can hold them down and keep them here as ghosts. Not very productive ghosts either, I might add. So if you ask for guidance on that sort of a thing in doing these retrievals, you can be led to that sort of a situation because there's lots of it around. And you'll wind up chatting with them, and they'll, once you get their attention, sometimes they're so pissed off you can't even get their attention. The standard thing is people walking up, standard for me, I've seen this many times, people walking up and down in an urban area after a car accident. The car accident's been cleared away hours ago, maybe even days ago. And but they're still seeing the mental projection of what happened initially. The twisted metal, the ambulances, the crushed bodies or whatever. And one of those crushed bodies was them, but they're walking up and down, and they're going over the whole thing in their mind in a closed loop, and we're worried about those they left behind, the children, the financial responsibilities, the spouse who may or may not be well. Maybe they left behind a sick spouse. And so you have to deal with all of that. You have to sort of project in to where they're pacing up and down and talk to them. And sometimes they won't see you, and you have to invent clever ways for them to see you. Because they're, as I say, they're in a sort of a closed loop and going around in circles, basically. And that can take a while and a bit of cleverness, but you'll figure it out. And once you get their attention, you talk to them. And you can, by tuning into their thoughts, you can see what needs to be done first. They're worried about the spouse, the children. You can take them to where that is. And you may say to yourself, oh, I don't know where the children are. Well, you ask a guide that's a permanent astral resident that already knows this, but hasn't got the lower vibration to talk to this confused dead person, whereas you do. You're the link. So you put out a message to the guide, okay, I think they need to see the kids. So, and the guide knows where they are. So you sort of follow the energy of the guide. Don't think about following the energy of the guide, just do it. Don't try to puzzle it out. Just do what the impulse tells you to do. And then hopefully, probably, you and the confused dead person will be in a home, a bedroom, a kitchen where the children are. And they can see them, or the spouse, or the partner. Many people just live with partners, don't have children. Or parents, if they're living with parents. And see that. And that gets them started. And it may upset them because, if the accident or the death happened, the day before, people are still going to be very upset. And they may not be able to take it for very long, the energy of grief, but it helps initially to see it. and you'll go on from there. The person still may not want to move on to the afterlife, the proper afterlife. They may wish to sort of, it's too exciting, it's too upsetting. They want to get out of the house and go back to the accident scene because it's kind of less intense. And so there's a bit of toing and froing there. And you may be working on a situation and it takes quite a quote unquote bit of time, and you may have to leave in order to wake up and go to work or whatever. Or if that happens, then they try to get someone else. Another guide will try to take your place. Or sometimes you have to leave them and come back. Certainly with people, with ghosts that are stuck, royally stuck in a situation, a house that they used to live in, someone else's house that they rather like, or, you know, all the ghost situations that you've heard about over the years. Those people usually can't be extracted right away. They have to be visited over and over and over. But again, it's a learning situation and it's something that you need to practice. And of course, just contacting your deceased loved ones whilst in meditation or properly out of body when you're asleep is very good for the heart. Will do your heart wonders, so it will. And as I hinted at in an earlier report, you can take that increased heart energy and satisfaction and serenity and gratefulness for the perceived safety of your loved one and the perceived happiness of your loved one, and give it to others. It's easy enough to do. You can. There's the dream where you contact them, the next day where you're out and about in the world, and feeling that gratefulness and increased love. Just project it to people as you're walking by. Just project it. You're spreading the love. You don't have to wave a flag. You don't have to put on a T-shirt. You know, just do it. And of course, the boomerang that you send out comes back to you. And so it's a win-win situation. Unconsciously, people passing by who may not be having the greatest day in the world get a bit of that love, and it comes back to you. They don't send it back, but it comes back because that's what love does. And like I say, it's a win-win situation. And as such, I will leave you with that tonight and wish you all well.